Today, we're going to dive into one of the most incredible and honestly most difficult journeys a person can take. Real, deep, personal transformation. And we're going to uncover why that process so often feels less like some triumphant breakthrough and a whole lot more like a complete breakdown.
You know, it almost always starts with a moment just like this one. It's quiet. You're just looking in the mirror. And it's not about failure. It's this weird, quiet disconnect. A gap between the life you're actually living and the one you feel like you could be. But that feeling, that's not the end of the road. It's the real beginning.
So yeah, this mirror moment, it's the kickoff to what's really a silent psychological revolution. It's where the work really gets started deep down inside your own mind.
We love to think of change as this big Hollywood-style event, right? One single moment where everything clicks. But the truth? It's much more of a slow, gradual process. It's about taking apart these old, rusty ways of thinking and carefully building new ones. You know, psychologists have a few names for this. Carl Jung, for example, he called it individuation, and Abraham Maslow called it self-actualization. But no matter what you call it, it's about rebuilding your entire view of the world from the inside out.
So, what exactly are we dismantling here? Well, it turns out most of us are running on software we don't even know is there.
Think about it. We all have these invisible scripts. They're these emotional programs we picked up in childhood, from family, from our culture, from our first experiences, and they just run in the background, you know? Quietly telling us what's possible for someone like us. And in the process, they build these invisible walls that end up defining our entire lives.
Do any of these hit a little close to home? They seem like just thoughts, right? But when you repeat them to yourself day after day for a lifetime, they become the unshakable architecture of your reality. The very first act of revolution, the very first step, is just to notice them, to finally see the walls for what they really are.
And this, right here, is where all the hope comes in. Your brain isn't set in stone. The science of neuroplasticity is incredible. It shows us that every single time you consciously challenge one of those old beliefs, you are physically, literally reshaping your mind. New connections form, old ones get weaker. In fact, it's wild. Some studies show that just vividly imagining yourself doing something new can start building the exact same neural pathways as actually doing it. So yeah, you are, in a very real sense, a construction worker for your own brain.
Okay, so this brings us to the big central paradox of this whole thing. If our brains are literally built to change, then why on earth is it so unbelievably hard and uncomfortable? Come on, we've all been there. You decide you're going to change a habit or start thinking more positively, and almost right away, you feel this massive internal pushback. It feels like a war inside your own head. And guess what? That feeling isn't just you being weak. It's a biological reality.
See, your brain has one primary job, above all else: keep things stable. It's a drive called psychological homeostasis, and its whole goal is to keep your sense of who you are consistent. So when you try to act in a way that doesn't match up with who you believe you are, your brain flags it like an error message. It tries to pull you right back to what's familiar. So that resistance you feel, that's not laziness. It's a survival mechanism kicking in.
And listen, if you only take one thing away from this, let it be this. That feeling of chaos, that friction, that deep discomfort, that is not a sign that you're failing. It's actually a good thing. It's the sound of the old programming losing its grip. It means the process is actually working.
This is the absolute key to making it stick. Lasting change is almost never about just gritting your teeth and forcing new habits with willpower. That stuff is temporary. Real, sustainable change comes from an identity shift. So for example, instead of just forcing yourself to go to the gym, you start seeing yourself as the kind of person who is active. You're not just doing something different, you're becoming someone different. And when that happens, the new behaviors just follow along naturally. So as you go on this journey of rebuilding yourself, you inevitably hit this challenging but really necessary phase where you might feel totally and completely lost.
Psychologists have a name for this too. They call it the liminal phase. It's that foggy, in-between space where you're too self-aware to go back to being the old you, but you're not yet confident in this new person you're becoming. It just feels like pure uncertainty. But this is the workshop. This is where the part of your brain that tells your story is actively rewriting the script. It's the empty space required for rebirth.
So how in the world do you get through this phase? It all starts with telling the truth. And I don't mean beating yourself up with criticism. I mean a gentle but radical honesty about where you are right now. Acknowledging what you really feel, what you've been avoiding, what still hurts. That honesty is what finally breaks down the defenses that have kept you stuck.
And this leads to a really critical choice. Are you trying to change because you think you're broken and need to be fixed? That's self-rejection. Or are you evolving from a place of self-integration, understanding that you are already whole, and the goal is to learn to work with all your parts, not declare war on them? That second path, the one based on compassion, that's the one that leads to real lasting healing.
All right, so this brings us to the final stage. This is where all that deep internal work finally starts to show up in the real world. Not as a struggle, but as just a new way of living.
Real transformation isn't built on some grand heroic gesture. It's built on thousands of what you could call micro-revolutions. These are the tiny, almost invisible moments where you make a new choice, where you pause for a split second instead of reacting, where you choose the path of the person you want to be over the well-worn habit of the person you used to be.
Every single one of these small acts is like casting a vote for your new identity. They seem so minor in the moment, but these are the repetitions that physically rewire your brain. And over time, they all add up, and that old identity, it just kind of fades away, replaced by something that feels truer, more aligned.
And then, one day, you just realize it. The inner battle has gone quiet. You respond with calm where there used to be defensiveness. The change isn't something you have to try to do anymore. It's just who you are. You didn't become some perfect new person. It feels more like you finally came home to yourself.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought. Transformation isn't really about becoming perfect. It's about becoming conscious. It's this lifelong conversation between the person you've been and the person you are still becoming. So what's the one story you've been telling yourself that it's finally time to rewrite?